nice to have some nice warm New Year's welcomes and have everyone have a chance to say hi. At 6:04 we'll bring the meeting to order. I just want to recognize that tonight's meeting is being held on the traditional territories of the Sunemu people, and we appreciate their sharing of their lands with us. I'm seeking to, if there's any additions or deletions or changes in the order of the agenda. Seeing none, I'd like to seek a motion that approves the minutes from the Education Committee meeting held December 5th, 2018. Proposed by Trustee Barron, seconded by Trustee Berzovich. Wow, I'm back to last names. It's very official. Okay. Pardon? Call the question. Okay. Yes, and calling the question on that? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, unanimous, great. Okay, we're going to start the evening off with a presentation from Wellington Secondary School. I'll hand it over to teachers Mike Dang and Derwin Pai, is how I pronounce it. We should have had you here on March 14th. And, please take over.
Thank you. Good one.
Nerd.
I was going to say that joke about he who last laughed. Last laugh. I got this one. Do you want to do the intro?
You set up. I don't know where to go.
So the last couple of years, of course, we've been making leaps and bounds in robotics and tech at Wellington. And it's started with Mike and robotics, so I think that's where we're starting our show. Oh no, we have VR first. VR. Oh my goodness, starting with me. Okay, so at Ladysmith, I introduced. We had got to the BC Tech Summit and found that VR was the next thing that was just going to be really big, and so my students did some research and figured that the HTC Vive would be the good setup to go. So we bought a couple of those rigs. And then when I went to Wellington, I kind of sold the idea to Mr. Lintott here, and he approved us buying a couple rigs here. And so my students have been experiencing virtual worlds in being able to create and interact with VR. So I've actually brought the rig here. You can see these two towers here and the headset. And we have a 360 video of the one of our robot competitions, which we'll do at the end of this presentation. But the cool thing for this is that it's collaborative, that now the students in Ladysmith and Cedar and Wellington can now all be in the same virtual room together, even though they're in totally separate places. Of course, 3D printing. The school had a couple of 3D printers. I built the first 3D printer with my students at Ladysmith years ago, and then it just went crazy. We had 6 of them at one time printing all at the same time in my lab. Wellington had a couple already when I began and immediately bought another one. And so a lot of this stuff here you see is student work. So being able to 3D print chains and Gucci logos, Christmas cookie cutters, and this was one of the science teachers said, have you ever heard of the Boy's surface? It's sort of like a Mobius strip. And then students doing vases. And one student wanted a bust of Stalin for a social studies project. So some designs are just downloaded off of the internet, and others are totally built by students. These are the twins, the Affinius, and then the big one on the right. So those ones print about that big. The one on the right, big guy, can print a square foot or a cubic foot. It's huge. We've also done Code Club this year. BBC has been really promoting their microbit. So recently one of my students programmed these 2 microbits to talk to each other and play hot potato. It's all about the design thinking process, where we create, we look at a problem and fall in love with a problem and delve into the different ways of approaching it, learning about the audience, defining the problem, I don't like the word ideate. I love the word envision, because that's more like what we want to see students doing, brainstorming. And then prototyping, 3D printing comes into that big time, and then testing and training them. Lots of different ways we can emphasize this. In fact, if I had had 2 more minutes, I would have shown you the one that we've just finished. Jake Hardy and I have worked on a SD68 branded version of this design thinking thing. And maybe if I pop it up later, I'll put it up on the screen here. But we're going to roll that out pretty soon.
Okay, thanks for
Now to you with the robotics.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting us to this space, and I want to say thank you to the students who is our starters today, because it's about you guys. And so we have Kayla, Jen, Jake, Justin, and Ravisha. They'll introduce themselves later on as you kind of mingle. So we're going to give you guys some time after this to actually play, because we know that people learn best by playing sometimes, right? And so I'll talk quickly, so I hope that you guys can listen quickly. We're going to go through this. Grade 8, what is grade? It's part of our grade 8 rotation. We do the ADST, or the Applied Design Skills Technology. We introduce them to design thinking and the question of why. We need to start there. Why do we want to learn? And that's such a hard question for kids to understand. But it's a great start, because it motivates, it inspires them. We have activities in the grade 8 as VEX IQ, that's the robots that are provided by the school district. We build paper rockets. Simple technology, simple supplies, but the whole design process is embedded in designing a paper rocket. We do spheros that are supplied by this district, as well as Wellington have our own set. But not only coding, but also how do I design a sphero to be better? And so, next one. All right, so the grade 8s, we turn our little computer, our little robotics lab to an arena, and we put tennis balls, and because teenagers are all about a couple things. Competition and candy at the end of it, right? And they're like, chocolate, I'll do anything, I'll go crazy, all right? So for them, it's competing and designing different. We have these VEX kits, but it's about designing a better claw, or how do I make it more efficient? How do I make it move faster? Make it move stronger, and everyone has a good time.
How can I pick up 2 balls at the same time?
Right, and it's super fun. It's all about team building as well, as they work together and collaborate. Okay, next slide, please. Then they evolve to grade 9s and 10 students, and it's a whole new ballpark, because we have to kick it up to the next level. Design thinking, we dive into deeper, the real empathy. So not only do we talk about why do you want to do it, but how do you improve the world now? How do you make the community better is a question, okay? And so we talk about PC, the anatomy of PC, so they have an opportunity to take apart a PC and put it back together. So these are real skills that they're learning, as well as learning how to solder, basic circuitry. We have sumo bots, bug bots, 3D printing, coding, and passion projects. They finish off with a passion project that they're really, really inspired to do. The sumo bot, so these are the PC. This is a passion project by a couple grade 10 students, where they're rebuilding a computer for the purpose of their video gaming, right? So maybe, and I told them that, what if you were able to do this as a job, is to rebuild computers for students who can't afford a computer. Okay? Bug bots. This is just for pure fun, and this is a good way to teach them how to solder and think about a better design.
Someone was a clear winner.
Someone's a clear winner, yeah. But I have a few of the bug bots there, but it's about tinkering, right? It's about designing something. Oh, that didn't work, so how do I make it better? Okay. Next slide, please. So other things that they're involved with Skills Canada. So we have students in this district who are going to compete in February to do the skills competition. Last year we had these 3 gentlemen move on to the Abbotsford, which is the provincial Skills Canada competition. We've had students who, I don't like robots, I don't like circuitry, so I'm like, hey, I want you to design an arena for us. So he was able to apply his woodworking skills. Right?
Did I go too fast?
Yeah, go too fast. Okay, and so basically what we have is grade 9s and 10s building passion projects for themselves and really dive into why am I doing this. All right, the next one. This is the grade 10s. They are programming a VEX EDR. That's kind of like the next step. and this is it's autonomous, so they have to code they have to code the instructions for the robot to go through a certain position, start to finish.
Hands up.
And clearly, watch this. He's really impressed with himself. Yeah. All right. So, anyway,
It was hard. That was
yeah,
not,
definitely.
That was not done on the first try.
No, no. We also run a robotics club that's open for every grade. So 8 to 12, we have grade 12 students working on some coding, some high-end coding stuff, and we have grade 8s who are just starting to discover what robotics is about in coding. And younger, yeah. We also had a guest student from another school just wanted to see what's robotics about in high school. So we
Couldn't wait.
Couldn't wait. So we definitely invited, opened the doors for him. All right. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Are there any other questions?
And is there any brave volunteer who want to actually put the headset on?
I would love to do that. No. Quick question. Can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, this looks just ripe for like project-based learning.
Yes.
Right? So, and I assume there's also some performance aspect in that. Can you just talk to us a little bit about like what role does that play in this type of course?
As in the assessment for this?
Yeah, like what kind of opportunities do you, I mean, I see these projects,
Yeah.
is that, do they do them just in class, do they take them outside? Is this part of the assessment and the performance, like once the materials are put together?
Yeah, so I emphasize this, and these guys are tired of hearing me saying this. It's about the process, not the product. Right? And so we assess the process of the design thinking process as part of the new curriculum.
Yeah.
So they're evaluated on those learning criteria. Okay? Do they have an opportunity to go outside? Absolutely, because I talk about things like this. But why are you 3D printing? Okay, you can 3D print something cool, but this was a gift for the student's mother for Christmas. But why? Right? So it's not really about them. It's about how do I improve the community around me. Cookie cutters. We printed cookie cutters, and these gingerbread cookies were used to make cookies that were added to our food hamper at Christmas. So to give it to the families within our community. So the reason why. So they see that connection, that what they're doing in the classroom is beyond the classroom. It connects the community. So,
Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee O'Neill, Chantal?
Yeah, and just to sort of segue into the use of the little Stalin statue really piqued my interest. Having gone through history and sort of that whole connection, I see that one student has used this to apply to another course of study, which is cool. So my question is, what is the uptake in a course like this? Because it seems to me that it's not offered in all the schools, and it's not. I mean, you must reach sort of capacity at some point. So.
Well, the class.
How does that work?
Reaching capacity, yeah, it's an elective, so it's available. We hit all the grade 9s through the grade 9 rotation. So every grade 9 is able to take robotics and design thinking. So the grade 8s through the grade 8 rotation. So they'll all see that. The grade 9, it's an elective, so they sign up and take the course. Grade 10s, we're hoping to grow the program to the 11, 12. I was just talking to these guys about this. Is the next step. Where do we go from our robotics program at Wellington? Well, I would like to see biomedical engineering starting to evolve out of this, right? Being able to work in the virtual world, being able to develop prosthetic limbs in the virtual world and then 3D print it. How cool would that be? But why would we do that? Well, what if we can 3D print a prosthetic hand for somebody? Why not, right? But we're working in the virtual world and connecting with other people, right? The VR stuff, we brought our kids to my environmental studies class to see a coral reef dying, right? Acidification is occurring in coral reef, so they're able to kind of dizzily go through it, right? And actually be there as they kind of see the coral reef before and after. So there's a connection there beyond the community, beyond the classroom to the community as well. Outdoor education. There is videos and content out there that allows them to encounter wildlife. And what does that look like as a bear encounter? So it's actually a training program that people use to be bear aware, bear safe.
Any last questions before? You said you needed volunteer?
Yeah, I've seemed to have, well, I was sure that I had it on the desktop. It always happens, right?
He's lost in the virtual
I've
world.
lost the video. But yeah, I'll get someone to throw these headsets on so you can actually see what I'm seeing.
I've
here.
actually done this before, so
Have
I won't put myself forward. It's a lot of fun.
There it is.
I highly recommend it, but you can feel dizzy, so if you're prone to dizziness, I wouldn't
Yes.
recommend it. But, I mean, does anybody want this opportunity?
Come on.
We all know Lisa Marie does.
Go for it, Lisa Marie.
Okay, Trustee Barron, our resident guinea pig. Carl, are you ready for this?
Okay. So they are adjustable straps if you find it doesn't fit you very well.
I have a big head.
Come through.
Okay.
Okay, and as you look around, you should be able to see that you're in a virtual room that has a bunch of video. Sure. Let me give you the controller here. And then turn towards me, and you'll see some videos. And then if you point at the, did I give you the right controller? That one should have like a laser pointer on it.
I'm here for safety only.
Safety, very good.
I'm sorry if I hit somebody.
All right, now you should have a laser pointer on one hand.
Okay.
Point towards the video just under the word captures. And then click your index finger trigger once you're pointing at it. There you go. So now you're going to see our robot competition in 360.
She is.
So this is the stage at Wellington. We set it up to do a little bit of competition between our robotics club.
And of course, it's not working properly. It's showing up as a flat video in 360. That's not how it's supposed to work. Never works out properly. So had this been working properly, she would be feeling like she's floating about 5 feet above the stage and being able to see the robots all around her. And of course, for some reason, it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
It's still really cool in here.
In here being a teacher, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me see if I can do some tweaking. And
It'd be quite an experience. I did some content on a helicopter rescue on Mount Everest, and you're hanging on the side of a helicopter and you're looking around. And it's like, this is cool. And you can kind of see the route of Mount Everest and things like that. So all this stuff is really cool, but we really want to invite you guys to see the kids and what's happening at Wellington. In the spring, we have a tech week. So every day features one of the technology. It could be photography, it could be textiles, but different days there's a different theme, and you guys are invited to that in the spring. We did the first ever kind of VEX competition within SC68. We hosted it last year. We want to make it bigger. We want to invite every high school. We'd like to extend our program to other schools, other high schools that do not have a robotics program. These guys don't know it yet, but you guys are so... I'm grooming them to be ambassadors. Don't tell them. To extend their knowledge to different schools, whether it's the elementary or whether it's in secondary.
Trustee Higginson had a question.
Yes.
Sorry, out of order. Sorry. So as we are making the transition to the new curriculum,
Okay.
one of the questions that I get asked a lot, and I've been dealing in the assessment world lately a lot, and we hear from parents, particularly parents who are feeling nervous about this. And I look at this and I think, you know, my sons, they're just going to go nuts for this. But as a parent, there's a lot of concerns about, you know, we're getting away from the basics. And how do we know about the basics? And how do I know that my kids are still going to know how to do, you know, certain skills that we value when we were in school? So I keep telling them that everything that we do, and I was just talking about this today, that we layer numeracy and literacy into everything we do. Yeah, it's not so apparent. So I'm just wondering, with a course like this, how does that happen? Because this is sort of like the gold standard, I think, of what we're doing in terms of collaboration, project-based learning, student interest, personal interest. So how is it that, as the teacher, you ensure that those two things are layered into what they're learning?
We do it very simply. learning what the Indian knows. So a couple things like Ohm's law, as an example. those basic math, scientific concepts. We do a small section on this, and so they're able to actually use formulas. So talking about numeracy, there's math involved there. Jake and Ravisha, I challenged them to build a gear ratio, so understanding gear ratios and basically, so we're using divisions and proportions, right? So that's embedded in there, so the numeracy part. Sharing their results as well, right? So after each assignment, there's a reflection piece, so they're able to share and communicate their learning to me or to somebody else. We did an interview type assignment where they had to design a wallet for their partner. Once again, we got some writing there. Okay. So gear ratios, they can talk about it, but they've taken it to a whole nother. They were supposed to build a claw that picks up stuff. They said, hey, I respectfully say, I don't like that, Mr. Dang. I'm going to build something else. I'm like, cool. What are you building? So they built a crane. Instead of a claw that picks up, they built a crane. And they're discovering, like, why does this crane fail? Why do cranes in the real world, why do they collapse? It's not the gear ratios. It's actually the structure around them. It's actually the ropes or the chains that are actually failing. So they discovered that all by themselves. Right?
And what I found is that students will go a lot further with their interest in something that they're engaged in. I had a student join my class yesterday, and today he was already asking me about quaternions because it came up in the programming that he wanted to do. He just wanted to make planets orbit. And in Unity programming, you need to learn about quaternions. And this is a grade 8 boy, or grade 9 rather. And I don't think in any other class he would have been asking about quaternions the second day in the class. And he's just, because he's trying something that he's interested in, engaged in, and he's taking it further. I would not have included quaternions on day 2 of any class. And yet here he is.
So getting back to your question, the numeracy and literacy is embedded into the assignment, and it's part of the process and not the end product.
And you keep alluding to that they're going to show us?
Absolutely. So now, probably you don't want to hear me talk anymore. We invite you guys to explore, talk to them. We've been talking, ask them questions. Take a look at the gear ratio that they built, the crane that they built, the 3D printing, VR, and the sumo bots. Everything's like, even the trophy, we sumo bought the trophy, we took the hockey player off, we sumo bought a sumo wrestler on there, right? So take a look, we invite you to ask questions.
So we have about 5 minutes,
Yep.
so I'd say pick your most interesting thing and go explore.
And if you just can't wait and you have a smartphone and you want to do some VR, we have some of these left over from Canada 150. This is a cardboard version of that.
Oh,
And
really?
it just uses a smartphone.
Funny.
Take it home.
Business. Obviously, that was a lot of fun. We like playing. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Oh, and I assume that our superintendent would like to. Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Mike and Derwin for their presentation tonight. I wish you would have shown a little bit of passion in the work you do, but
That's my point.
it was nice nonetheless. Thank you, and thanks for bringing the kids. We all get crazy around kids, right? And I think we could have spent another hour listening. I understood some of what they were telling me over there. But they were speaking sort of a different language. So
Yes.
thanks for the great presentation, and thanks for bringing everything in here tonight.
And just as a little token of thank you to you guys for sharing with us and teaching us, and what might not everyone have occurred, as Trustee Robinson asked about how many girls were in the class, and we have 2 representatives of 3. So these are pioneers. So thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Now, yeah, there was a bit of a setup.
Shall we? Yeah, but we can take a couple of minutes just to recess, and you guys can kind of. Yep. Find your way.
It gets boring.
So
really
more
quick.
time for chat. We'll resume in a couple of minutes. I don't know where Canada is. Oh, there she is. We're moving on to reconciliation item on our agenda and handing it over to Trustee Higginson, and I believe and Trustee Robinson, and I was looking also for the other Stephanie Johnson over there, so I'll let you guys take it over. Now, I recognize that I'm in the way of the video, so I'm not sure when you want the video, so just let me know when I will move.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And there's also from our committee here, we have Jamie, and we have Scott, and we have Carrie as well from the committee, so lots of people. And Tim's there. See, I can't see over here. Sorry, guys. If I forgot you, then tell me. So I'm feeling a little nervous. It's a big moment for those of us who are on the committee to bring this to this point. And so what I thought I would do is start, because there are so many new members of the board, if you would like, I'll ask you, if you would like me to go back to the beginning of the timeline, like June 2017, when this became a goal of the board, or if you want to just start our conversation with the consultation and what's occurred and what your questions are, so that you guys are confident. How are people feeling? Do you feel like you have enough information just to start right into the consultation? Mm-hmm. Lots of nods? Excellent. So what I thought I would do, or we thought we would do, the committee spent some time thinking about the best way to do this, is talk, as you can see in this list, who we have been consulting with since the consultation process began, which is at the end of October, when we were given permission to take this out to consultation by the board. I think it may have been the last official act of the previous board that they did. And in this, you can see that we have gone through an incredibly robust consultation process. I think it's the most robust consultation process that I've participated in as a trustee. And what happened was we went out to every single stakeholder who's here at this table. We have DPAC tomorrow night. And we have also then met with our land-based and our urban Indigenous partners. And we had a meeting scheduled with the Mid-Island Métis that unfortunately got canceled. It was last Saturday, so that's in the process of being rebooked. However, Joy Bremner is at the Leaders for Learners, where we have been, and so she has seen all of this. You will see from the reports that you've been given that the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive to this. Like, not only positive, but warm and embracing and excited. And I've only been able to attend one because I was away, but my fellow my fellow committee members are here who can speak to that if you guys have questions specifically about that. And our consultation meetings typically included it's modeled the process that the committee has worked under, which is following process and protocol and ceremony. So an opening song and prayer, the speaker, who is generally the host of the meeting, opening it, and then we watch the videos that we put together. When the committee was talking about this work, we found it really difficult to be concise with what it meant to all of us. So we were really fortunate to have a video crew come and offer their services to us to video, put our thoughts into videos for us. And so we've been showing those videos, and then questions and feedback, and then input into implementation, priorities that people have where we've been for implementation. So I'm going to start by showing you guys the two videos that we're filming in my house. So I'm a little attached to them. This one is the first one. It's just the reading of the policy, which is the words that you guys have with the diagram. So we'll start with this one.
Truth and reconciliation is a significant goal of the Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools. The goal of reconciliation was established by the Board of Education in response to Canada's Truth and Reconciliation calls to action, and it's underpinned by the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. In partnership, Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools and Indigenous knowledge keepers are committed to continue working together on the journey of reconciliation.
Siyatsas, walking together, is a Hulkamanian expression for walking in two worlds, living and honoring the teachings of the land and First Peoples, while navigating the ever-changing complexities of today's world and society. In today's context, Siyatsas suggests We strive to find balance between the traditional way of living and the contemporary lifestyle.
Siyat begins by understanding and embracing the teachings of this land on which we live and work as a basis for our journey to truth and reconciliation. Those complex knowledge systems can only be fully appreciated by first understanding and recognizing the relationship between the land, language, and culture.
The Siyat framework is rooted in the knowledge that we are all relations in the cycle of life. Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools respects and cherishes the land our schools and offices are situated upon. The land and its resources touch every aspect of our life and is the cornerstone of our connectivity. It is within this space we will strengthen our sense of belonging and interconnectedness to enhance all of our relationships in a thoughtful way.
By learning to walk in two different worlds, we will create a resilient, vital school system and an improved living and learning environment for all of our children and families.
Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools commits to honoring the land and using this framework to guide and inform us by, first, working with our students, staff, Indigenous knowledge keepers, and community partner groups in a spirit of respect, courage, and vulnerability to bridge together different views and beliefs in a restorative, caring way. Second, providing ongoing and meaningful learning opportunities for all students, staff, and community partner groups.
Do I just close this one? So the next one is members of the committee talking about what they see the policy meaning for the various group or organization that they were representing. And not everybody could be there that day. So for the folks who couldn't be there, what we did was they came in and did some voiceovers for us on what the policy means for them. And they're on the website, the consultation website that was sent out to all the families in the district. And so this is what the website looks like. You can see it, and it's got the policy reading. It's got a copy of the policy you can click on, as well as the long video that you're about to watch. Then it has Harvey using Hulkaminam, reading the policy in Hulkaminam. It was really important for us to use the language. And then I will go back to, where is it? No. Oh, here. Hang on. So this one is a little bit longer, with members of the committee talking about what the policy means and how they see it changing or working for the district.
For a long time, I was made to feel like a visitor. I was made to feel like I didn't belong here. And I felt alienated. And I didn't understand why.
Siyat begins by understanding and embracing the teachings of this land on which we live and work as a basis for our journey to truth and reconciliation.
I always think back about Auntie Joan when she says this is the first time we've ever been invited to the table. And it shocks me to understand and even fathom that concept after so many decades of the school district being here. And now we're finally allowed to sit at the table with everyone else. And that's really a huge, massive, transformative time for every one of us. And for myself personally, it makes me feel like I shine from within even brighter because I feel valued, I feel honored, and I feel that my voice matters for the first time ever in this capacity.
When we first were looking to put this into the framework, what we were looking for was a term that was walking in two worlds. And I think that that is as close as we could get in the Ho'okiminam language. But to me, it's actually quite meaningful that we have found a word that means, and it was unintentional, to land on a word that means walking together, because for so long, our Indigenous relatives have been walking in two worlds. They have been navigating colonial ways and still managing to hold on to the language and the lessons of the land and traditional ways. And they've been walking in two worlds. And what Siyetsas means to me is it's time for non-Indigenous folks, for the colonizers, to come alongside our Indigenous relatives and learn the lessons that they have to teach us. And for me, what I see is that we started out with this term that we were hoping could embody walking in two worlds, but what we landed on, and this is one of those iconic moments of this language and this land, is something that means walking together. And my hope is that with this framework, we'll move from walking in two worlds to being able to walk together.
The Siyetsas policy is groundbreaking, in my opinion. When you work within an organization, you're guided by the policies and principles that are set in place by your board, by your leadership. If you have that tacit permission to walk differently, to behave differently, to take chances, to be vulnerable, then our students benefit from that. It provides us a platform on which we can explore ourselves. It provides us a platform that we can seek a better self. And so our organization, I think, through this policy, seeks to become something different than an education system has been in the past.
Children of all ages and all cultures, it's important that they learn from the land so that we can all be one, working together as one, and things will start getting better for us in this universe. Working together is what we need to do. Right, Jill?
Siyetsas means together, connecting and joining. Not only the land and the sea, the animals, fish that belong there, but the peoples, and the people are so connected to the land, and that's the First Nations, on reserve, off reserve, Métis. All people are connected together and sharing their knowledge and their wisdom, and erasing any barriers that may exist from historical passings.
Siyetsas is, I think, the beginning of the school district recognizing and reconciling our relationship with Indigenous people. The relationships we have with Indigenous people are the most important relationships we have in the school district right now. And I would say that this is the most important work that we're doing in the school district right now.
I hope and I believe that as our Siyetsas policy grows into action across the district, that both our Indigenous and non-Indigenous students and many of their families will come along and learn what the land has taught us, that we are one family. Our schools, our buildings, our offices, our kids, our parents, we're all living on this one land. We are one family, working together. And when you're family, you treat each other differently, you look upon each other differently, and you create a much stronger community and a stronger and better world. And I believe this Siyetsas policy can be the stimulus that makes that change, that very positive change, not only in this district, but across the community.
My children will be able to walk with their heads higher, and they will be able to truly feel it in their heart that this is who we are. This land is sacred, and it's where we were birthed from. All those eagles flying out there, all the salmon in the ocean, all the bears in the forest, we are one with all of that. And for the first time, we're able to share that experience and that wisdom and that knowledge with everybody that's opening up their heart and mind. And because of our history and where we are today, we are grasping onto that in this area of the world as Kosenish Kwamo. And it feels so, like I'm so honored and so proud to even be who I am, to even know that I have a voice and that I can use my Hulkaminam squall and that I can share my songs. My kids can share their dances. And it's really tapping into another realm of goodness. And it's a very fortunate time of blessing, and we're so grateful. It's nothing but abundance of gratitude, and how rich we really are in here. And now we're able to share it in a way that opens people's hearts and minds up. And once they really tap into it themselves, you'll see them shine and explode like a supernova. It's going to feel so good when the heart and the mind come together as one. Not the right swallowing. So.
Share a little story. So this was filmed at my home. It was this wonderful day where we all came together and shared what this meant to us. And at the end, the drumming, Lawrence went outside with his children and they drummed and they danced. And that's the river that I live on, that I look at every single day. I know every tree. I know where the eagles like to sit. It's what we get to look at every day. We're very fortunate. And Lawrence was out there for about 45 minutes or an hour singing and drumming with his children. And he'd been out there kind of on and off all day. And the eagles usually sit in a big cottonwood tree just down the river. And as he started singing, the eagles would fly over. And they don't normally fly that low, and they don't normally come that close to us. And he just kept going, and they just kept coming. And more of them kept coming. And then they all came and they sat in a big tree across the river, like 8 of them, and they would sing with him. It was amazing. And honestly, like I lived there, I've lived there for 8 or 9 years, and we've never had anything like that happen before. It was just really beautiful and really reaffirming the work that we're doing and the importance of understanding the land and the messages and the teachings that the land has to teach us and how deeply connected everything is. One of the things I've learned through this is how connected the land, language, and culture are, and to have somebody, these lessons come from the land, the language comes from the land, the language comes from the land, and to have somebody standing there doing this protocol and ceremony that we know comes from this land, it was pretty moving and amazing, and that's my little anecdote for you. on the importance, you know, of what we're doing here. Can you grab those lights, please? So, the committee recognizes that we haven't quite finished all of the consultations, but we've done a lot of them, and as I've said, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. We have students tomorrow as well that we're going to meet with. And so I guess I just want to hear questions. You guys can see on here through this excellent report how many people have engaged you know, with the videos, and how many thoughts we've had, and people who have engaged in the thought stream as well. So,
thank you. First of all, I think this is amazing, beautiful, wonderful work. I 100% support it, and I'm incredibly proud of all of you for all of it. In terms of the student participation tomorrow, is it high school, or can you give me sort of a sense of how many students you're expecting in ages? And
do you remember we just got this information the other day? Do you remember?
I can speak to it. Okay. There's 45 students coming, and it's being held at the Woodlands School in the About program. And it's a 2-hour session. Our committee will just have some guiding questions, and we're going to be at 8 different tables with 5 students each, and we're going to listen and learn. And as we're listening and learning, we're going to capture what we hear and roll it into this end report.
And you know the age range you're invited?
I don't.
I'm just curious.
It's a mixture of students from the About program and from various secondary schools. NDSS, for example, has a committee in place, so they're sending students from the committee over. I know we'll have representation from other secondary schools, so I would say it's a mixture from 8 to 12.
Thank you. And the committee does intend to come back, because we'll be all done, to present the final report on January 30th to the board. But we wanted the education committee and all the stakeholders here and everything to have an opportunity to ask questions about the consultation process and stuff, so that we all are ready to make the recommendation. So.
Trustee McKay?
Thank you.
It's okay.
So I'll start with Isaka, to yourself, Trustee Robinson, and all of the other members of the Reconciliation family, and truly recognize the gratitude that I have for the work that's being done. This will change and shape the way that our children go through school. And I could not wholeheartedly agree more with Superintendent Saywell that this is the most important work that we will undertake. And so I can easily say that throughout this process you will have my absolute committed support at every step. And on the anecdote about the Eagles, they are well known in our culture to be able to speak to both ways, and they're our connection as people who are here to our Creator, and it is so eloquently perfect that they were there for that day. Thank you.
I guess I'll take this opportunity to put myself on the speaker's list. I kind of have 2 questions, but they're very much related. And one is seeking more information about what you're looking for from us today, and especially with regards to that the consultation hasn't been finished yet. So I was, in reading what the recommended motion was, I was, and this has nothing to do with my thoughts about the framework. It's just more thoughts about the process. And I personally, I was confused if we were being asked to approve something before consultation was being finished. So I wasn't sure and wanted clarity on what was being sought from this meeting today. Was like you just said, it was just an opportunity to ask questions. Could you help us out on that a bit?
So it's an opportunity to ask questions so that people feel confident making the recommendation. We are aware that it's kind of a bit flip-floppy, right? But there's a couple of things. One, the committee could have just brought this to the board and not brought it to the committee. Our process is that we bring things to the committee first, so that the committee has an opportunity to wrestle it. But this is board work, and so we could have skipped bringing it here. But the committee wanted, because so many members of this committee are people who have participated in the consultation. If you look at the consultation list, we wanted them to have an opportunity to provide further feedback if they hadn't. It's another touch point, it's another process for consultation, so the board could hear if, all these folks who sit have been consulted. And so if there is more concerns, it gives the voting members of this committee an opportunity to hear if there is any concerns out there. Because if we just skipped this and brought it straight to the board, you wouldn't have that opportunity. So it gives those folks a chance to provide that feedback to the voting members of the committee. And also, as you'll see, we're down to, not very many folks left for consultation. And because it has been so overwhelmingly positive, we felt it was appropriate to bring it here so that the committee had an opportunity for further input. And also, it's a recommendation. And the board, this ultimately is board work, and the board does have the ability at the end of the month, upon hearing the final hearing the final presentation, from the committee once everything is finished, does have the ability to change the recommendation if they want. But it was an opportunity for the committee to really provide one last bit of feedback if they wanted to before it went to the board table, where nobody gets to do that, and also to make that recommendation.
So if I can ask a point of clarification, is this our opportunity to, it's almost like our consultation experience in some ways? Or are you seeking a recommendation, an approval of it going into policy?
We're seeking the recommendation that it does. Approval for it happens on January 30th
right.
at the board meeting.
Yeah.
So we're seeking the recommendation from the committee, not approval of it.
Does anybody have any other questions? Trustee, well, okay, Trustee O'Neill.
Well, I would just ask if any of the other committee members had anything they wanted to add in this conversation. Those of you who are on the committee and have been a part of this process, I'd be interested to hear.
Through the chair, maybe I will. Just that I appreciate the work that this reconciliation family has undertaken, and I just wanted to point out Stephanie Johnson, who's facilitating this work, and how valuable she's been on this journey. So thank you, Stephanie. And I also wanted to point out people whose work has got us to this point, right? So two people who are here tonight, Laura Tate and Robin Gray, have been carrying on this work for, the last couple decades in this district. And so they've influenced me personally in a big way. And so I wanted to recognize them tonight as well. So,
Trustee Robinson?
Lawrence mentioned that he referred a couple of times to Auntie Joan, saying this is the first time she and others, Indigenous leaders, have been invited to the table. And I just want people to know that it's more than 5 Indigenous knowledge keepers joining this committee. It's 5 Indigenous knowledge keepers with whom we walk hand in hand and lean on. To everything we do is through the cultural, doing it the good way, culturally. We start with a song and a prayer. We have 2 minutes of silence. We check in around the room. We don't have an agenda. Surprisingly, it works great. Everything we've done is from a culturally correct way. So it's not only are they invited to the table, they are really leading as we walk hand in hand. We lean on them consistently. That's why this YETSIS policy is going to be so powerful, and this committee with those 5 knowledge keepers are going to remain in place, supporting us as we activate this policy. It's the most transformative thing I have ever experienced, the Ashkwalawan heart-mind connection. I've learned after, I don't know, 5-6 years of having been told about the land, or the culture and language comes from the land. I never got it until I had the chance to hang out with these 5 knowledge keepers and just watch the way they act, interact, and lead. This is groundbreaking, what we're doing. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Stephanie Johnson. By the way, the film crew that shot all that day did it for nothing, led by Stephanie's nephew, who is a former student from our district. And I'd like to acknowledge Stephanie H. for doing a heck of a job presenting this today. Thank you.
Rather a question, thank you. Would you like to know your recommendation?
Sure, I have one more thing too about why we brought it here too, and part of it is also so that this committee can feel, this is a committee of all of, the voices that have been recognized as tremendously important, and we wanted people to feel like they had a part in it as well. So that was another reason why we brought it here, sort of in a bit of a funny order. One thing, as Bill said, we've learned is that there's like this bureaucratic colonial way of doing things, and then there's the way that the land has taught us. And when we started this, I am, and so is Steph J. We're so type A. Like, it made me so nervous not to have agendas. Still makes me nervous. But what I've learned is just to trust. And the committee and the family really wanted it to come here. They were like, I don't care what your problem is. We really want it to come here, and we really want people to have an opportunity to engage with it. It's very important that everybody feels that they've had a part in it. So that's another reason why it's here. So I just, before a recommendation gets moved, I really want to make sure that nobody has any other questions, that everybody feels comfortable.
I have questions.
Go for it.
So maybe that's me being the type A. But I do want, I think there's some important conversations to be had, and for me the two are process and implications. So I am concerned about process just because, and it has nothing to do with the material itself, it's just more that when I look at the people that are left on the list to be consulted, I don't want people to feel insulted. Or that the cart has been put before the horse and they weren't included, and so I feel a responsibility just to at least inquire about that, just to make sure that we're not, by putting forward a recommendation about policy, fundamentally I liken it to the election, when the election is called after Ontario was voted and then BC is still supposed to vote but they never get their say. Or feel like they're not part of the process. So that I think that's an important conversation to have, just out of respect that all the members or all the stakeholders, the people to be consulted, are comfortable with that process there. I don't know if there's anybody that can address that or not.
Well, I guess the way that I can address it is to say that we're not gonna not consult them. We're not canceling tomorrow or the meetings that are coming up. They're still on the list, and we're still going to consult them, and they will still be part of the process and the report out on January 30th. I don't know why I keep saying June, probably because I was just in the sun for 3 weeks. So January 30th. So you will get the chance to hear from them. You will 100% get the chance to hear from them, and we're not going to cancel their consultations because the committee makes a recommendation today. It's still going to happen, and we're still going forward. So you're still going to get a chance to hear from them before you vote on it. It's one of those funny things about our committee structure where we make a recommendation and then people just assume it's a done deal. But the whole reason the committees make recommendations and give 2 weeks for pause is for the opportunity for people to provide feedback to those recommendations before the board makes a final vote. We do recognize it's a bit backwards. Our Indigenous knowledge keepers feel a great sense of urgency to have this work completed, this part of the work completed, so that they can move on to the implementation part. And so that was one of the reasons why February was chosen, because they also really would like they want a cultural celebration. And if you get into March, which would have been what all the timing is, then that's a very busy time for them. So that's why we chose February, and then we had to work back from there. And there was a whole bunch of our holidays, Christmas break, all this kind of stuff that fell in there, and so we just had to work within it. So hopefully that addresses your concerns. We're not going to not consult with them, and you will still get to hear their voices before the board makes a final recommendation.
Trustee Brozovich?
And just speaking to that, I can tell you from my own experience, we have had times where we have made a recommendation, and then 2 weeks later, people have realized that, gotten input and feedback and changed their mind. Yeah, so there is precedent for that, if that turns out to be necessary. But looking at the list of who's left, I can certainly tell you that DPAC and people I know from Staneva want this, believe in this, believe it's good work, and believe that we should be moving forward with it. And I think students, they're just happy to be that their voice is heard, you know. So as long as we actually continue with them, I think most of the people that are left will not feel offended by us moving the recommendation, so that we can finalize it at the end of the month.
And we did meet partly with part of Staneva, with the education, and also they're part of the Leaders for Learners as well.
Good point.
And Joan Brown is the CEO, so it's okay.
And Trustee McQuay had a question.
More comment around the process of what we're doing. I think that in order to appropriately embrace the essence of CNSS is to throw process out the window, which is a little bit uncomfortable. Certainly for me. I don't know about you. It might be another type A if you ask around the table. However, this is work that isn't done by process, it's done by heart and by doing what's right. And I know certainly that I look forward to hearing what our other groups are going to say about it when we discuss it again. But I'm confident that it's the right thing to do to move forward with the recommendation.
Trustee O'Neill?
Well, and I wholeheartedly also support a recommendation to move this forward. And I wish I knew a better way of saying wholehearted, but I will learn that.
My last question, well, no, I have a full list, but I do think that as much as we can talk about trust and faith, I also think that it's respectful to fully engage and dig in and explore and understand. Not only in a sense of doing our duties as kind of elected representatives for the community and making sure that when we're looking at policy we fully understand it. And this leads me to my question about the implications. So what, I want to use the word hope, but I don't because that biases my question. What do you think, and this is not just to I recognize that we're all looking at Trustee Higgins, but really, you know, if any can provide feedback on what this is a different, it's different, it's just different. And so what do you think the implications of this would be in bringing it into policy? What are, and I want to go back, I don't want to use the word hopes because I want that to be a neutral question.
This is you know, how it will be implemented has been talked about a lot. And I think the people on the committee who are here who've been to more of those consultation meetings than me could probably answer that better if you want to take a stab at that first. I don't know if somebody wants to jump in at that first, or if you really want me to just take it line. Steph, do you want to try?
I first want to defer to other committee members. Anybody else have any? What we've been hearing and learning is a lot more education is needed. We're hearing, if I could sum it up, is we want to know the real history of Canada, and we want to understand it, and we want to make it right. And what are the supports that we're going to get to be able to get there? And I think the policy is really, there's no risk. It's one based on love, respect, kindness, humility, all the things that we unpacked for what the values of reconciliation are when we began the journey is really what this policy is about. So I don't see any red flags or anything.
So maybe let me have that word of hope then. What do you hope are going to be the effects of it? Like what are we hoping for from?
I would speak on behalf of myself and the Indigenous knowledge holders that we work so closely together with. It's a hope that we change the way we treat each other. We're trying to shift the culture, the whole organizational culture. We're looking at each of the school sites, all the way up to what we do in the administration area. It's based on kindness. It's shifting an organizational culture, and within that there's many, many tactics. And the tactics are coming out in what we're learning in each of the consultations. We learn more about tactics. There's a lot that the district's already doing and doing very well to do more of. Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, yeah, through the chair, I thought District Principal Ted Cadwallader said it quite nicely in the video, this idea that we operate under these policies that are put in place by boards and senior management, admin procedures and so on. And that, as Ted says, that provides tacit permission on how to act. And this policy sort of implies that we're going to act a little bit differently. Reconciliation means different things to whoever you're talking to, and it's a journey. It took us 7 generations, 150 years to get where we are today, and this, for me, signals a point at which we can act differently. There's such great things happening in classrooms right now, and I think this is an umbrella, a policy to remind people about how we're going to act with each other. It's important to put into words in policy, because that says a lot about the culture of this organization. So, we just need to do this work.
Sorry, Tim, you want to go?
Go ahead.
So, one of the things that's most important for me, and Auntie Joan says this all the time, and she says, when she talks about being invited to the table for the first time, it's not that we haven't, we've had this beautiful Leaders for Learners. It's not that we haven't been, consulting with and working with our Indigenous partners. It's about the recognition that this policy gives to the importance of land-based knowledge. And that this, Auntie Joan always says, we know what we know because we know it. And we don't want to have to keep telling you why we know it or how we know it. And so for me, what are the implications? This is when we talk about reconciliation, it's not just reconciling past unjust treatments and learning how, the true history of Canada. It's reconciling knowledge. And it's giving, when Auntie Joan says it's the first time we've been invited, it's the first time they've been invited to really share this knowledge, and it's valuing the land-based knowledge, that the land upon which our schools and our students and our homes, and that all of us, there is knowledge here. And it's recognizing the importance of those, and it's teaching our students we went to study Departure Bay, and that was one of the first places we actually heard the lessons. And as you're sitting here and you're being spoken to by the old people, and you look across the street at 7-Eleven where they're buried under, and you begin to understand the importance of protecting these really important places for our Indigenous relatives, because these are places where knowledge was born and knowledge comes from. And so for me, having a policy in place that honors land-based knowledge and recognizes the importance of every member of our organization understanding that and helping them and providing them with resources to understand that is going to be groundbreaking.
I'm about to speak out of turn. You know, I just had this moment where this framework provides an opportunity for our Indigenous students to see themselves in our system, to see their culture, to see their understandings, to see their language. And at the heart of all of this, if we can even begin to give that gift, then wow.
So Tim and then Bill. Tim has language.
Yes, sorry. And before, I can't actually see anyone back there, so please, interrupt.
No, that's it. What does it mean for me? I heard the word hope, so to the chair, if I can speak, please. I heard the word hope, and this was actually something that was brought up through Auntie Joan at one of our meetings, and I think it was the recognition that over so many years there has been hope given and maybe dashed in many ways. And it was the recognition that through the work that's happening at the committee table, you hear the word family. It's because people are embracing one another, the ideas that are being permitted to be shared, and the understandings that are taking place. It was brought up actually at the meeting that we had on at Sonawas just this week here, where they spoke about family and what does that mean from a cultural standpoint. Truly being a family, they hear the committee members speaking about family, but embracing one another, for our strengths and our weaknesses, and supporting one another through this process. Really, and I know you don't want to take full credit for the term, but Laura has spoken for many years about collective ownership, and through our district, what I see here is that it's already been mentioned. Ted mentioned it through his sharings as well, but it's that piece around people in our system feeling safe and comfortable to be able to move forward in terms of their own knowledge, their own understanding, the work that they are going to do and lead with our students, and knowing that along the way there are mistakes that may be made, but they have permission to attempt and make effort to do the right thing here. So it's not a matter of whether Truth and Reconciliation, the commission through the guidelines are telling us this is what we have to do. I think just as an organization, it's already been mentioned from a cultural standpoint through our organization, and I mean that as to who we are and what we believe in, what we represent. This is the right thing for us to be doing. So it is that permission from my standpoint for everybody to be taking steps, and it's going to be, people are going to be at different places, in their own journey, their own understandings, in their own work, but they are going to be able to move forward through the recognition that, as a board, the board acknowledges the place that people are at and the work that needs to be done. So that's what I get out of it, and that's the hope that I have. Thank you.
I think as we celebrate the language and culture of our Indigenous students, the value to them, I think it's easy to recognize. But something, personally, since I first met Mandy Jones and her sister Joan Brown, and first heard about language and culture coming from the land, and it took me 6-7 years to get some kind of understanding. Through that process, and especially through working on this committee, I've changed. Squalawan, my heart-mind connection is much, much stronger. I want that for our non-Indigenous students. Let's not only focus on what this is going to do for our Indigenous students. It's about bloody time we did more for them. But let's recognize the non-Indigenous students are going to gain, I think, more in value. Trustee Higginson was talking about her children and the experience in the Philippines, and recognizing that they have so much here. We have so much in so many ways, our non-Indigenous as well as Indigenous students, but we have so much to learn and gain from this culture that surrounds us, and that's an equal or maybe even more important to me than what we're doing for our Indigenous students. This is an amazing, powerful, wonderful program that is being developed and policy. And I'm going to do what we've done so many times. If I don't shut up, I'll start shedding tears. So this family has done a lot of tear shedding. Healthy tear shedding. Let's have a motion.
I'm happy to bring forward a motion. I do wonder why we're bringing it into policy versus a foundational statement.
Sorry, were you going to hand up to answer?
I was kind of, or my understanding of it.
Go for it.
Through the chair. I, being new to this role, felt that we already had that foundational understanding. So, and I'm hearing what everybody's seeing, the importance of a policy meaning to them, and I can see why that would be important. So, that's why I interjected, because like you being new to this, I just assumed that this was the foundational piece.
For me, this policy will bear the wording of my commitment to the work and to creating the culture so that it can happen. It's a promise on my behalf to pass this, to see that through.
I was just going to say similar to that, but I don't think that passing this as a policy preempts us from also, at some point as we do our strategic plan and as we get into all that work that we'll be doing, creating a foundational statement that aligns with it. And I don't think it's an either or.
And I'll just add too that, from a process perspective, it's in there as a policy because that's how our current strategic plan kind of works. But the reconciliation family is also aware, nervously aware, that we are embarking on redoing our strategic plan, having at the exact same time been consulting on a goal of the current strategic plan. And I will plant in the seed in the heads of my trustee colleagues for a discussion at the board, or just for a commitment from us that this will remain and be given a prominent part of the new strategic plan. And so the words of the document that we are working on the recommendation for tonight don't need to change. They won't change. But like you said, maybe it's a foundational statement in the next one, maybe it's a policy because we are talking about where our strategic plan goes, but the committee is going to be looking for a commitment from the board on January 30th that this remains, has a prominent place in the strategic plan going forward, since we have just consulted on it and just done all the work for it. So I think it can fit into a prominent place the next strategic plan that we write, if the board supports it. If there's no more questions from people, then I'm going to move the recommendation. Okay. I'm going to move the recommendation if there's a second.
Would you like to say that loud? Because that seems like it's...
Read the recommendation. The Education Committee recommended the Board of Education of School District 68 adopt the CASS reconciliation framework as a board policy.
It's moved by Trustee Higginson and seconded by Trustee Robinson. Any questions, or we've had a rich and important conversation? All in favor? Seeing that there's no possible opposition, it's passed unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm just going to take 1 second.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to phone the Indigenous knowledge.
Okay. If we're ready to move forward, we have a staff report by Secretary Treasurer McVeigh. That's tough to follow.
It's really hard to follow to move on to business after that conversation, but we'll try and switch gears. On page 14 of your package is a letter from Minister Fleming to the various associations represented in education in regards to the funding formula review report. So just as a reminder that back in early 2018, an independent panel was formed to review the K-12 funding model in education, and that review ultimately resulted in a report of 22 recommendations that were released in mid-December. So the recommendations are attached in the agenda package. I'm sure you've all read it. And long story short, as a result of the recommendations not really having a roadmap in terms of how such a model might be recommended or how these recommendations might be implemented, they've given us a year. So it's our understanding that the current funding formula in respect of our operating and special purpose grants will not change. We've asked further clarification if that also is in reference to the CEF staffing and overhead funding, and my understanding it's status quo on that as well. So we'll go through another year. Another panel, implementation panel, has been appointed by the ministry. So hopefully over the next year we'll see what more in a concrete way the funding model will look like. It's really hard to comment on those recommendations because they're, conceptual.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? Trustee Higginson?
So it's not so much questions as some thoughts, and first I think it's really important for us to remember that this is the report of the panel. These are not ministry recommendations, so I think it's really important for us to remember that. I think that it would be, we asked for more time, and at the very last minute we were given more time, which is great. And one of the reasons we asked for more time was because we felt like at the local board, and we sent a letter in September that said we'd like time to model any recommendations that they're going to make, any changes, any recommended changes to the funding model. And also that there wasn't a lot of time to talk to our stakeholders on this. And I think it would behoove the board to hear, slowly over the next little while, as opposed to being reactive, let's try to be proactive, hear from our staff, maybe a report out one night on the implications of some of the things that they see and hear for the board, any places that we may have red flags for our district, places that we should be advocating for, as well as hearing from stakeholders who feel positive or feel concerned about recommendations that are in here over the course of the next little while, so that we are able to appropriately advocate for any final changes.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, and not making me talk so much. Trustee Burzwich.
Thank you. Through the chair, actually to Trustee Higginson, has BCSTA heard anything about what the mechanism will be for giving feedback on this? Or?
We have not heard anything yet.
Okay.
People are just coming back from vacation, and
yeah.
So
yeah.
Not yet.
I do recall Trustee Swan, President Swan was asked a question actually on Facebook about this and where trustees could give, boards could give input, and he said he didn't know who was going to be part of it.
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And can I ask if staff had heard any inklings about how we may participate in the feedback process? Or
no, we haven't heard anything either. Again, there was a call back in December just as the report was being released, but they didn't get into those details. Just that there will be opportunities for further engagement and feedback.
I'll just, I guess, kind of echo Trustee Higginson's comments of I would really like us to see us being very proactive on this. So we're prepared for those opportunities, so us to have a ability to have a conversation again, to get feedback from staff and partner groups, and then also where our highlights or red flags. I see, for example, the unique school from, speaking as a trustee representative for Gabriola, this is something that would really benefit them, and so that's one way that we could reach out to a group to understand their unique situation and their unique challenges, and for us to advocate in this process for that unique school. I think it's applicable. And so I guess we'll make decisions on that later. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
Funding formula has kind of been a standing item throughout the year, and I think it'll just continue to be that standing item, whether it's at education or business committee, whatever opportunities we have. So it'll be kept.
Oh, well, I'll ask Plot.
Yeah.
Well, Trustee Higginson?
That was going to be my sort of request. Is I know we have a lot coming up, and I'm quite relieved actually that we don't have to deal with a new model so quickly for budget season. Mm-hmm. Although it doesn't mean you guys have to learn too. Yeah. So, but I do think wherever we have time on a business committee agenda, it might be nice for us to do one of two things. One would be to hear some feedback from staff on a particular part of this. We dove into this part this time, and here's what the implications kind of look like for our district. It doesn't have to be in depth because, like I said, this isn't the ministry recommendations, this is the panels, but we know that the ministry is going to be building off this. Mm-hmm. Just so that we have a better understanding of what the implications are for our district of this change, and then also providing spots for partner groups who might have concerns or ideas or thoughts or feedback from us, parent groups, things like that. If there's spots on the business committee agenda where we have places for that. I know we have budget coming up, I know we have all sorts of things, but every now and then there's a spot, and it might be a good place for us to utilize so that we're really knowledgeable about this when it happens.
Yeah, and again, as we move throughout the year, I think that there will be a lot of rich conversations at different association meetings like BCSSA and BCA, ASBO, and so staff will be able to bring that back.
No? Okay. I will, just based on previous conversations that we've had elsewhere, I did speak to some of the speakers at BCSTA. I spoke to the BCPC, sorry, the acronym, sorry. I spoke to the BCPC speakers at the BCSTA about the funding formula review, which, I could put another acronym in there, with regards to language around that involved labels and assessment and diagnoses. And so they were going to try to speak a little bit more clear about that. So that should be, and possibly for trustees that are coming up for the BCSDA, BCPC trustee orientation, that just to give you a highlight or a heads up, you might get some more information at those sessions. And so I'm kind of asking for, you know, like put those particular ears on, if you will. When I spoke to the presenters, they made a comment about, no, assessment is still very much valued. It's more that we're going to look at how it is we're funding those students with special needs or additional complex learning situations. So not that the assessment was going to be pushed aside, it was just that was going to continue, but that the funding for those, how we meet those needs, was not going to be the same. That was their particular understanding at the time. So just wanted to clarify that, because we had a previous conversation on that.
Just for clarity, for people who actually know what any of this acronym means, those were Ministry of Ed people, not BCPC. It was Ministry of Ed people who were doing it.
No, it was Renzo, sorry. It was, I went up to the conversation for BCPC, Renzo and Janet.
After, okay, because they also said the exact same thing. The ministry people talked about assessments being at the core and not being taken away. So
Rest assured I asked lots of questions. So I was on it. Okay, any other comments? I mean, I could talk, and apparently I'm just going to have to go talk to myself about this. I think that because we have a high level of poverty in Nanaimo, this is also another huge thing that we need to explore. They've obviously looked at that being, with regards to the prevalence model, I think we need to be on that. So I will shut up, because trust me, if anybody wants to, you know, go out for a beverage and chat with me about this anytime.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other? No, that's it. We're good?
Yep.
Final opportunity to ask questions of our Secretary of Treasury on this topic? Alrighty, I'm really just stalling to get back to the agenda, frankly. I don't see any correspondence we've heard. I know of no unfinished business. I see no new business. Were there any questions submitted? Okay, then I'm seeking a motion to adjourn. So moved by Trustee Brozovic and seconded by Trustee McKay. Can I call the question on that? Everyone in favor? Alrighty, we're adjourned at 7:45.